The Rock and Roll American Football Podcast. Absolute Radio.
Rock and Roll American Football. Jay Lawrence here with Glenn Carter II. Carter to friends and family. Are we at that level yet, friends and family? Do you reckon, Carter?
No, Jay. No.
Oh.
Please call me His Highness.
Keith.
His Majesty, I don't know. What's HM something, right?
So, has there ever been a time when you've thought, oh, I don't actually want to be called Glenn. I want to be known as someone else.
So I'm from Virginia, and in Virginia, we from the country, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone who likes you gives you a nickname. Like everyone who knows you and likes you gives you a nickname. So I'm not technically called by my name by anybody.
It's just always been Carter.
No, it's sometimes it's Carter, sometimes it's a bunch of like whatever people think of you in a moment.
G.
And it's G, sometimes it sticks. And so people just call you random nicknames. But that's in the South, or where I'm from in the South, that's how you know if somebody is close to you.
So when people start calling you Glenn Carter II, you realize, oh, they don't like me. They're giving me my full name.
No, it means that maybe they're paying me. So that's a good, yes, how are you? I'll shake your hand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mr. Carter II.
Yes, Mr. J. Lawrence.
Yeah, that's it.
His Majesty.
See, my nicknames were literally just Jay, and then every few years someone would call me Jazif, as if like they'd be the first person to come up with it.
Right.
So it started when I was like 10, and then someone called me Jazif, and a few years later someone else, and each time they're just like, I've created something amazing here, Jazif, and I'm like, yeah, it's been done before. The worst thing that's ever happened to me with my name, right, or like the thing that's kind of confused me the most is that lots of people ask if my name is short for something, which is fine because a lot of people are called Jay.
Very true.
It's short for something. My name is not short for something. It literally is just Jay. So then someone asked me this, is your name short for something? I said, no, it's not. And then they replied, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yes, mate.
Maybe.
No, now you say that.
Let me call my mama. Let me call my mama and see what she says.
Exactly. So there's quite a bit to talk about, actually. It's happened over the last few hours, actually. Not even just days, Carter, in the NFL. Not all good stuff. Not all fun stuff, not stuff that we feel like we really want to talk about or should have to talk about. Maybe that's the better phrase. But
but should.
This is life. No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I know we should talk about it, but I guess what I'm saying is you like to think that we wouldn't have to talk about it because some of this stuff hope would not have happened.
Right.
But, it is what it is, and we're going to have to talk about it anyway. So we will talk a little bit about the London games a bit later on, because I was at the last game, Falcons and Jets. I'll also be at the next game, the big Florida derby, kind of, Dolphins and Jaguars. And some more news about expansion abroad into other countries, into Europe, actually. Stuff that's literally come out, Carter. I don't think you know about this. Breaking news over the last 15 minutes. So amazing. I'll tell you about that in a minute. As well as going over some stuff that happened over the last few days in the NFL as well, game-wise. But we'll start with this one, Carter. John Gruden has resigned as Las Vegas Raiders head coach.
Ooh.
Now, that is following recent articles in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, which have detailed the use of racist, homophobic, and misogynistic terms by John Gruden in emails reportedly dating back to 2010, so over a decade ago. So Gruden's resigned as Las Vegas Raiders head coach. Now, I feel like we should give a little bit more detail. So he basically said back in 2011, he used a racial trope to describe NFL Players Association Executive Director DeMaurice Smith, who's black. And then Gruden also used homophobic and misogynistic terms in other emails, basically dating back to 2010. I don't actually necessarily feel like we need to repeat the terms, but
no, not necessary. You use your imagination, folks.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there was just no way that he could stay on, Carter, was there?
So, I've been contemplating this, and there's two fronts that I think he had to face. Number one would be the locker room, which after the first set of, I guess, allegations you can call them. They were okay. Has he lost the locker room? Well, not so much. It's a one-time offense. People aren't that pressed. But and apparently racism was one of the one of the lesser allegations, I guess, because once the misogyny and the homophobia showed up, perhaps it was now time to do, and maybe it was
Well, I think
all three of them working in tandem. Perhaps,
yeah,
maybe,
yeah. I think it was just like, there was enough. Maybe there was enough of a guffaw about obviously the first one, and rightly so.
right.
And then you can defend that all you want, but then as soon as other ones come out, it's
Yeah.
like, well, you've got no leg to stand on, really.
I think we are Americans, or America is a country of second chances. Okay, we can get past the first one if he crosses his T's, dots his I's. If he had issued a legitimate apology, which I did not think his first one was very good. As a thing, if anyone ever says there's no, I don't know why they go for the bones. Why are the bones not racist? Like there's no racist bone in my body. Why come everybody says that? You wouldn't just, anyways, you don't speak about your heart or your head or anything like that. Just go straight to the bones. I don't understand. But every time someone says that, you sort of think, oh, you could have said something better than that. And I didn't think that his initial apology was sufficient. Now, what I also read is, this is in the Times report, that timeline wasn't just the 2010, 2011. I thought that he had done some things closer to 2018 as well, which is when he became Raiders coach. I don't know.
Well, I don't think it was up to then. I might be wrong, but Gruden reportedly emailed Bruce Allen, who was then Washington team president, in 2014 about Michael Sam, who was drafted, who was the first openly gay player drafted by an NFL team. He was drafted by the then St. Louis Rams.
Yeah,
but that was 2014.
Yeah. So not 10 years ago, though. Closer, but I would have given him a second chance, of even if it were that far ago, because we sort of, in the internet age, like how long do we give people to sort of say, okay, we get it, it was in the past, let's move on. And I think that had the locker room rally behind him in full, and the organization, okay, and they did it in a more robust way than when these second and third allegations came out, that might have been a little easier for him to weather this storm. But I think that this ain't the only stuff that he said. I'm pretty sure that this, like, documented, there might be some more reports coming out. There might be some other things. And maybe he was trying to get ahead of something because, he's trying to save his reputation because he wants to go back in the booth or something after he leaves. But I think it's a challenging situation. I always think about the players. I always think about the players in this regard, because it's, what do you do if you're a black player for a coach who comes out and says something crazy like this? Like, how do you feel about that? How would you feel about that, Jay? I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about it. It's tough because you still want to win football games, but Well,
I mean, it's difficult for me, I suppose. It's not difficult for me to sympathize, but it's difficult for me to empathize, because as a white man, I've never experienced racism. Sure. Straight up, there was just never. It's never happened. It's unlikely to ever happen in my life. So it's difficult for me to say how I would feel, apart from the usual things that you'd assume that people would say in that situation. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
All I can say is I'm just, if I'm sick of it, imagine how the players will feel, and imagine I can imagine how you feel as well, Carter.
Yeah, totally.
And it's just something that we seem to be talking about all the time.
Yeah, it's, as much as people want to say, things have moved on, things have whatever. And honestly, these are remarks. that does their comments, not directly affecting. Well, that's not true because he's essentially a colleague. The head of the NFLPA is essentially a colleague of John Gruden, an extended colleague. But these are the people you work with, and who knows how that sentiment that he expressed in these intimate emails with close friends or whatever, how that affects his decisioning around how he treats his players or how he treats other people who look like this or have these particular orientations or of these genders. Like, I mean, that's the point. Like, that's the point.
Well, I don't know if it has been mentioned in anything that I've read about this yet, but the other thing that I have to mention is, Gruden, as I said earlier, reportedly said something regarding Michael Sam, who is the first openly gay player drafted by an NFL team. Now, who is the only open gay player in the NFL right now? It's Carl Nassib. He came out a few months ago. Congratulations to him. I thought it was an amazing, amazing thing to do, and hopefully has left the door open for many others to do it. He plays for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Now, Carl Nassib, so not only do you have, obviously, many, many black players playing for the Las Vegas Raiders that have to deal with those comments, but you've also got the only openly gay player in the NFL playing for your team, and you've just heard your head coach say something that you would rather not him say about gay people.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that just means that your job is untenable. Thankfully.
And that's definitely for Gruden. But that's the concern, which is does his sentiment that he expressed and might still believe or condone or at the very least ignore, which is just as bad because you're by proxy condoning some stuff or whatever. Does that make that player's job in jeopardy, for example? And that's the concern. Like, feel how you say what you say, feel how you feel, but you have the power to affect my way of life. Like, this is my career. Like, that's but also just your quality of life as well. I know that sounds, you're completely right in regards to your career, but do you want to have to go to work thinking this is what my boss thinks, and therefore not only do you have to be concerned maybe about your future financially and just through work, but also you don't want to have to think that, and again, as a white straight male, I won't have to think that, and that's why it's difficult for me to. Well, I will say, Jay, as a black man who's experienced some things in his life, it is something that is constantly on my mind. It is a constant thing that it is ways, and you have to check. I don't dress up for you, Jay, on this podcast. I don't. I will not wear a suit and tie.
Fine with that.
No, but I understand what you're saying. That's me trying to make light of something, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's untenable. His position, and do you know what? It's interesting what you just said a moment ago about what he might be thinking about in the future. He might not be thinking about anything right now because it's so fresh that he's just resigned. But he will, I'm sure, over the next few weeks, think about what he's going to do in his future. Whether he, at some point, if he's thinking maybe I can get back with an NFL team, or again, can he get back into the booth?
It's going to take some time. He's the type of, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. That's what I was going to say. Does it take time? I mean, it will take time in this instance, but then is it just a case of in a year's time, we'll just find him back in the booth?
I was going to say historically it took time. I don't know about these times. And this is not a cancel culture thing. If you behave badly, like that's what happens. Yeah. I don't know. There's 32 head coaches in the league. You gotta. I don't know, man. Yeah,
I'm with you. It's not cancel culture. You've just done something bad, and we don't like it.
Yeah, bro.
That's it.
You come to work. We have to live with this. The organization has to live with this. The players have to deal with this distraction. Can I say one more thing about that Gruden thing?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the reports say that Bruce Allen of the former Washington football team. Remember the hullabaloo that was around? Not even hullabaloo. It was legitimate crisis at the Washington Football Organization.
Yeah.
This was back when reports
Allegations
say,
of misogyny.
yeah, like of
Sexual misconduct.
sexual misconduct. Yeah, there were reports saying that Bruce Allen forced remember those cheerleaders to take inappropriate photos and then sent them to Gruden. Like that is
that right?
Yeah, you can't. Come on, man. Like it's any one of these instances is fireable in from my perspective. I don't not that it's not the oppression Olympics, but that's come on, man. Come on, bro. Yeah, he had to go. He had to go.
I did not know that about the cheerleaders. Yeah, that's
And that was, remember that investigation was like sealed, back, they didn't release that to the public. It was all, I remember Dan Snyder, like.
That's just come out today. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy. I think there's going to be a further reckoning with this.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a further reckoning. Well, just sticking on the football side for a moment, I would just tell you, Carter, that Rich Bisaccia has been named the Raiders' interim head coach. I have no idea if that's how you pronounce his name. I'm going to be honest with you.
I don't think anybody knows, Jay.
I'm not even sure if he does. He's been on the staff as the Raiders' assistant head coach / special teams coordinator for the last 4 seasons. 20th season as an NFL special teams coach.
All right.
So, I mean, I guess he gets his chance.
Good luck, Rich.
Bisaccia. Right, we'll move on to the London games, actually. The 2 games that are going on at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. One that just occurred between the New York Jets and the Atlanta Falcons. And I've got to just say, Carter, I was there and it was so good to be able to just go and watch a game again. Go watch the NFL. And you know what? I know we've had discussions before about safety and, in a COVID world and all of that, but from a purely selfish point of view of just sitting down and just watching a game, it was brilliant just to be able to enjoy watching the New York Jets, who were really not good, really not good. The Atlanta Falcons somehow made it quite difficult for themselves, but came through in the end. Yeah. But yeah, it was so good to see so many different jerseys as well. It just brings back so many memories. One of the highlights for me is that I can't remember who it was that was doing the national anthem, right? The US national anthem. But it was in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which is an amazing stadium. Honestly, it's an incredible ground. And they've got this platform right at the top of the stadium. Right at the top. I mean, right at the top. And she did the national anthem from there. And I was just thinking, I would poo myself.
Yeah.
I would poo myself if I was up there.
I've never been to Spurs Stadium. I know it's pretty tall. And I tell you what, you could put a mic on the ground for me.
That's it.
You can put a mic. I'll learn to play the piano if it means I don't have to go that far up.
I'm just interested to know how this pitch went to her. Like, hey, so we've got an idea.
The acoustics are just so great.
Yeah, you could do it on the field, but why don't you go to this tiny platform? I don't even know how you get up there. Yeah, you have to get sort of like in a plane, and it just goes really low. I don't know. Honestly, it was
you hella drop in to.
That's what it is.
Jeez.
It's like the Olympics, when back in 2012 when they made it look like the Queen was doing a plane drop or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, great to go back there. I will be there at the Jacksonville Jaguars Miami Dolphins game this weekend.
Another
as well.
Burner.
I know. But
people in the stadium though, you were there. Tell me, the atmosphere is great, right?
Yeah, I thought it was particularly good in this game. Like people were really into it. I've been at Wembley games when there's 90,000 people there and 89,000 are not a fan of the team or whatever, Yeah. So it's just like, yeah, great. But I just felt like people just wanted a good game. Yeah. So whenever something good happened, people were just cheering for it, whether it was a good touchdown, whether it was, there were a couple turnovers in the game as well. So whenever something like that occurred, so it really felt like it was, let's just have a good game. Yeah. More than anything else, which isn't a bad way of being, because it means you're cheering.
Yeah. And that groundswell. I mean, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but there might be some growing NFL fandom, or increasingly growing rather, because it's always been here. Fandom here in Europe. That's it.
That's it. Well, do you know what's interesting is that there's been, over the last few years, COVID aside, there was a year or two when there were 4 games in London from the NFL, which is double what it was this year. Yeah. I think there were 2 at Twickenham, there were 2 at Wembley Stadium, and now it seems to be moving all to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium because they have the facilities to handle NFL. When they built the stadium, they made sure that they had exactly what they needed to make sure that NFL occurred at that ground. Now, it seems that the NFL, whilst being committed to playing at least 2 games in London every year and a game in Mexico as well as part of the international series, they are going to be branching out as soon as next year potentially as well. So you could find that the 2022 season has another game, and the country I can reveal is going to be Germany.
Oh, okay.
Which is not much of a surprise because I know that there's a big NFL contingent, a fan contingent in Germany. So the NFL confirmed earlier on today, so Tuesday morning, that the 3 German cities in talks to stage regular season games are Dusseldorf, Frankfurt, and Munich. So one of those cities looks likely to be hosting NFL games in the future, presumably as well in stadiums that are for football teams. Yeah. So Bayern Munich Stadium, I'm sure, is going to be the most impressive and most impressive out of all of those 3s. But I, as much as I'd like to have as many games in London as possible, this can only be a good thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I keep thinking about it, which is I always think it's a bit far afield for a team to fly to Europe. But if you're flying to the West Coast, to play Seattle or the Rams or the Chargers or something, then coming from the East Coast to London is just another couple hours. And, Germany maybe another hour beyond that. So it's not, it's not that. And who's to say that they're not trying to, can you imagine in like 10 years, there's 2 NFL teams 2 expansion NFL teams in London and
London and Germany.
Yeah.
Maybe.
The London Lions or something.
Oh, yeah. No, because Detroit would not be very happy with that.
That's right.
Maybe. I actually think that this is less likely now to get there to be a team abroad, unless an owner really wants it to happen. Only because, they seem to be. I wonder if they do Germany, they do. They've got the UK. Maybe they even branch out to another country in Europe, or I suspect maybe Australia as well. But then the problem there becomes, the time difference is enough in the UK, let alone in Australia. Different.
Can't. I'm not flying 24 hours to play a game. The weeks are only so long. You can't.
The longest direct flight, I think it is. The longest direct flight you can get in the world is from LA to Sydney. I think it is.
I thought it was. I used to know this. It's Qantas. Qantas does it, and it is crazy long. It's like 18 hours and 50 minutes or something.
Well, anyway, we could be going for a road trip to Germany next year. Dusseldorf, Frankfurt, or Munich. One of the 3 German cities in talks to stage regular seasons games in the NFL. I fancy it. I mean, all the Germans are coming over here to watch the games, to be fair. So then we just go over there. Also means that, even more chance that you can go and watch your own team.
Yeah,
so,
it's true.
If the Saints are out there, I'll probably head over to Germany to go watch a game.
If the Saints lose, they'll definitely be over there because obviously they're not flying the Chiefs over here.
You know what?
The Chiefs might not make it either.
31 out of 32 teams have played in the UK. Can you name the team that has not played in the UK?
I'm going to say.
I'll give you like 3 guesses just so we're not. I was
going to say I'm going to need 3. It is the Minnesota Vikings.
That was they played not long ago. Actually, I think I saw them.
Okay, yeah, I think I did too. Carolina Panthers.
No, they literally played 2 years ago.
Yep, I remember that game too. I'm striking out.
One more. Think
Last
about this.
guess.
Think about this. Think about who would not want. Which team out of all of the teams would not want to give up a home game
Do not want to give up a
because
home.
they've got such a backlog of people wanting to go see home games.
Green Bay.
Green Bay. There we go.
Look at that.
Got there in
Look
the
at
end.
that.
Green Bay Packers.
Cheese heads.
So maybe they'll be going over to Germany at some point. I mean, I think they have put it into I can't remember what the term is, NFL law, that all teams have to do a game abroad every 6 years or something like that. So Green Bay will be abroad at some point.
I love German cheese, by the way. I think it's great. I couldn't name a German cheese.
I was about to say I couldn't name a German cheese either. So
Munster. Munster's German, right?
it sounds
Or maybe that's actually, I think that's Alsatian. Alsace is the region in between France and Germany. They make great wine, actually, and they also make great cheese.
Oh, and they were also somewhat to do with the war. That's all I can remember.
Very much so. Yes, it's always every time there is a war, because it's connecting France and Germany. It always runs through Alsace.
And I'll tell you what we'll just finally talk about. I feel like we've not really spoken about very much about anything that's actually gone on in the NFL over the past few days, Carter. But there's a couple of things I do want to talk about. First of all, the New York Giants, is their season now done and dusted? I know that you're a Giants fan, but you've got Daniel Jones, who is out for a concussion. Don't know for how long for. And Saquon Barkley, whose ankle looked like a tennis ball.
Jeez.
A large tennis ball, like a volleyball maybe.
Yeah.
After rolling his ankle, with those two players potentially out for, well, even a few weeks might be enough to really make sure that the Giants aren't in contention.
Yeah, not just Kenny Galladay, hyperextended knee. Our tackle Andrew Thomas, I think, is out. He's got an injured foot or something. Rodarius Williams is out. With an ACL, we just decimated, man. And
against the Rams this upcoming weekend.
Yeah. Kadarius Toney got in a fight in the last game.
Yeah, and he looked to be fined, if not suspended.
Yeah, but I also think he had like an injury in the I don't know, in the locker room or something. We are. Whew. Yeah, I think that the season's done for us because we're at, what are we, 1-3, 1-4 right now. We're at the bottom of the NFC East.
Yeah, 1-4 now. Yeah, 1-4 now. Yeah.
Cowboys are running away with the division, so that's done. And we're definitely not going to. Yeah, it's a tough season. I tell you though, fantastic performances. Some more positive news. Fantastic performances from two very good quarterbacks. Justin Herbert turned in a fantastic performance this weekend, and 75-year-old Tom Brady throwing for 411 yards and 5 touchdowns.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible.
Goodness. I tell you what. Tell me what you think about Antonio Brown this year. Doing well, right?
Antonio Brown, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, though, is when you've got an offense like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it does afford you the ability to have less pressure on certain players, of course, because you've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris. I mean, just the wide receiver unit taking away Gronk from the Bucs is just incredible because you've got Mike Evans, you've got Chris Godwin, and you've got Antonio Brown, which means that there's not, nobody's going to be double teaming a particular player because they've all got to be, they're all good enough to warrant, being double teamed. So Antonio Brown, with that pace, is if he's able to just get a little bit of room out the back, then he's gone, isn't he? Really? So yeah, I mean, he's just such a weapon. And it was only 2 years ago that we were talking about him being undoubtedly the best receiver in the NFL. I think we've got to remember that.
Yeah, it's true.
It's only 2 years ago. And I know a lot can change in the NFL very quickly, but it's only 2 years ago that we were talking about that. And Justin Herbert, I don't know if Justin Herbert is just a young star anymore. I think he's just a star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he's got the Chargers have a great, running, passing balance. I think I'm going to remember these running backs' names. Check me out. We've got, nope, he plays for the Browns. We've got Who's the guy? I think his
Who are you
first name,
talking about here?
last name starts with an E. He runs running back.
Austin Eckler.
Yes, I love Austin Eckler. Yes.
So much so that you forget his name.
So much so that I forgot his name. But he turned out a great game in week 5. And I mean, I agree with you about Justin Herbert, which is I don't think he's thrown a pick in a while. And had 4 touchdowns, I think almost 400 yards, so 389 or something. Just real good performance. Second year. Oof.
You know what? We can talk about stats as much as we like, really, when it comes to these players. And I know that the NFL is sort of built on stats, isn't it, really? But at the same time, the one thing that having Justin Herbert gives you as your quarterback, if you're a fan of the Los Angeles Chargers, is hope. The hope that no matter what position that you are in, and this is what happened when, even though they're a bit different players, especially over the last few years, especially last year when they're both in the league together. When Drew Brees, when I was, as a Saints fan, when Drew Brees was always at the quarterback, no matter what position you were in, you had hope that you could get it back. And it's the same with Justin Herbert. It's the same with a few different quarterbacks. Well, obviously Tom Brady. But Justin Herbert gives you that hope that no matter where you are, and especially in this game against the Browns, where it's sort of back and forth, and it feels like he can get you where you need to be, no matter what. Yeah, and you just have utter confidence in him. You just had overall confidence that no matter what happens,
totally, which is rare for a quarterback that young.
I think it's rare for a quarterback.
Fair.
It is. I mean, look, what did you say earlier? There's 32 quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks in the league. How many of those quarterbacks make you feel that way? 3 or 4, maybe 5, something like that. Yeah, so what you're talking about is you're talking about 5 people in the world. That's true, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. It's 100%
true. Like you're talking about 5 or 6 people in the world make you feel that way.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady.
Allen.
Justin, what did you just say?
Josh Allen.
Oh, all right, Josh Allen. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, I mean, I suppose you've got to put him in that as well.
I guess this year, maybe.
Patrick Mahomes. Tom Brady. Yeah, I don't know if you said Tom Brady. So you're talking about, I'd say about half a dozen, something like that. I might have missed somebody good. I mean, you've got to say congratulations to Lamar Jackson as well on Monday Night Football. What a comeback that was against the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
I was watching that.
Or would have collapsed by the Colts. But
yeah, I mean, I was watching that and I was just thinking, Colts have surely got this. I was thinking if the Ravens manage to get back here, it's just too much of a cliche almost.
Yeah.
But they did. So you know what? There are a few quarterbacks in there, but those are so few. And to know that after a year after drafting Justin Herbert, that you, as a Los Angeles Chargers fan, have one of those quarterbacks. I mean, it's just an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to think that potentially for the next, if we're going potentially for the next 20 years of your life, you could be watching him. Potentially. 15, you'd say, if he's good enough, 15. For sure.
It's so tough. It's so tough to predict that far in the future.
I know it is. I know it is. It's difficult. It's difficult.
I totally get what you're saying, though, which is the talent is obvious. It is obvious, 100%.
It's the assurance. It's the self-assurance. Yeah. That's what I particularly like. And do you know what? We'll just leave it on this, Carter. We'll just leave on this. We don't even need to talk about it that long, but kicker's got a kick, man.
You gotta. Well, I tell you what, Jay. I would give my kickers 4 times to get it right. That's how I would approach.
That's how you'd approach it.
If I were, let's say, a Green Bay Packer head coach who's taking heat because I might have mishandled the offseason with one of the greatest quarterbacks in NFL history. I'd let a guy miss 3 in a row and then let him kick a game winner. That's what I would do.
More kicks were missed this weekend than in any weekend in NFL history.
It's something I've been thinking about, which is it because teams are relying on kicking more? I'd love to see the data behind this, but
yeah,
they're being asked to kick longer field goals now, more consistently, and I wonder if that's throwing off their legs or side. I don't know how it works, but it's something.
I think that you've got something on there about reliance. It means that if there's 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they wouldn't have tried to kick it from 50 yards. But now because they're trying and they're getting it 60% of the time or something like that, just as a guess, it means that there's still that chance of failure there. So, yeah, I think that you've probably got something right on there. Carter, look, I think that's where we're going to end Rock and Roll American Football today. So I will see you on the other side of it, and I'll see you after I go to the last London game of the year.
Yes.
The incredibly exciting Jaguars-Dolphins. To be honest, I was excited to see Tua Tagovailoa versus Trevor Lawrence. God, his name escaped me there for a minute. I did a Carter.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. But Trevor Lawrence still should be good, should be fun. So I'll see. Yeah. So I'll see you next week.
Hopefully, Urban Meyer makes it on the plane back to the United States. No hanging out in pubs, buddy.
He's just gonna stick in London for a little while.
He's gonna hang out in Mayfair. He's going straight to Mayfair.
Yeah, straight to Soho.
Straight to Soho.
The Rock and Roll American Football Podcast. Absolute Radio.